Good morning, good Sunday morning. It's Vaughan at westcoastbellpottery.ca in Nova Scotia, Canada. I just posted my fish video this morning. Looks like people are enjoying it because it's got about 800-900 views already. I thought it was unfair that I didn't do a whale in that video because I said it was fish and whales, and gosh. Anyway, I'm going to make a whale so you can see how to do the whale as well. So the first thing you need to do is find yourself a picture of a whale, and it doesn't matter which one you pick, there's lots of them to pick from. So find yourself a nice picture that you like, and then we'll see how to do it. So it's very similar. You start off with a slab, and if you don't have a slab roller, what you do is you put 2 sticks either side of your little lump of clay here, which you patted down with your hands at first, and then you roll it out with the rolling pin resting on top of the wooden sticks, so that you can actually roll it backwards and forwards to actually get the slab about the thickness of the sticks. You can go thinner than the sticks if you remove the sticks, but I don't advise that. I like to roll mine at a 1/4 inch. It seems strong enough to withstand. They stay out all winter, and they survive, and basically no cracks in any of them for 2 years now. And hopefully they sold before 2 years anyway, so they're new ones. But so we went down to minus 26 degrees centigrade last winter, so they withstood that outside the building, because this is stoneware clay. So if you want to use earthenware clay, then you shouldn't leave them outside, because I don't think earthenware clay would take it. I use a little scraper, dip it in water, and just smooth your slab. Of course you could texture. There's nothing to stop you doing a really nice texture for your whale. Fantasy whale, like the fantasy fish. Alright, so we've got a nice... there was a crease going from the paper where I rolled, but I just got rid of it completely. Alright, on the back of this slab is the texture of the actual material that we rolled it out on, which is canvas. So then I'm going to do the appendages from the excess clay, although yeah, I will, because I'll show you how to reattach them again. So I don't need the actual tail to be up here yet. I'm just going to sort of draw out my whale. So I got a picture outside of the screen there of a whale that I'm just going to copy basically. And if you can't freehand draw, then you should get yourself a little tracing paper maybe, or a photocopier that enlarges pictures, and you could just use the paper from the photocopier, lay it on your slab, and then you can actually just press through the paper and get your image like a tracing, but pressing down hard on the paper. So we're coming back down now. So I'm going to get this tail to join up with that, because this is the body of the whale. I have a little bit of space here, so maybe I could include the fin in this piece of clay. Is it big enough? It's a bit small, so I'm not going to rub it out. If you make a mistake, you rub it out. So I can get out of this the tail, and I could get the fins too, I hope. So there's the tail up there, so I'm going to cut this bit out. Just go all the way along. Now we've got this huge piece of clay separate from, so I have to pick one. I can get the other fin probably out of that bit up there. This one looks like it's perfect for a tail, so I could just sort of sketch it to make sure. Brush is just as good. So we've got a whale tail. Make sure it's the right size. That's just your judgment. So I'm going to cut it out. Drawing skills are crucial even if you're doing pottery, because it's nice to be able to just freehand draw and be able to translate from what you see into your hand. So when I was young, we were told to keep a sketchbook and draw all the time. Now I'm going to put it up on top and see if it's the right size. Yeah, it's pretty close. So now, because of that, I'm going to cut out this part. Whale has some little bumps in that, so I'm wiggling the knife. You could do, you know, if you want, you know, figurative whales. You can also do cartoon-like whales. So do whatever you want and what makes you happy. More bumps up there because of the shows. Crustaceans that always end up finding a home on a whale. So we've got that piece off now. This will probably be the fin that goes down there, so I'm just going to cut that off. I've got lots of spare clay because I've made several whales today, so I don't have to worry about not having enough clay. So this will be the fin that goes down there. I think it needs to be at an angle, so let's cut that like that. And it's probably not that much bigger, but what I drew before, just a touch. And then what I do, because I don't like the square edge, I round it down. And then, like I showed you with the fish, you can just bevel where it's going to go, so you don't end up with that really thick area. Because this clay is brand new, it's very soft. Just rub your brush around with a bit of water like that. Don't need to scratch and score if the clay is brand new. And then you just place it on top, use a little pressure with your finger. There we go, we've got that one on there. Now you can immediately, if you want to, give yourself a, because this is the fin behind the body, just pull that across so we know it's actually the underside one. We'll put that next. Here we go, let's see if this is big enough. Maybe it should go this way round. Oh, I'll have to smooth it because it's got the texture on the back. And then we'll place it on here so we can get a size approximation. So this part's going to come up, go across, go like that, and then there's like a little fold there, so that's that part. And I can probably continue to draw with this. Not many of those bumps on the whale on that side, but on this side you've got some kind of points. So that's what we need to cut off. Remember what I said about the X-Acto blade? Don't take it out of the knife, because if you lose that blade, I have a policy, if I ever, and I've never had to do it, that I would throw the clay away, because it's not worth recycling the clay thinking you'll find it. Just get rid of it. If you don't know where that blade is, it's going to be very dangerous for you in the studio. So let's see whether that looks good. I think that looks fine. Okay, so the same again, going to round off the edges. So give to that one as well. I'm not going to stick this on there yet because I've got to do a little bit more. Now this tail, let's have a look. It's kind of, I think, I'm not seeing, I guess it's okay. We'll see when I join it on, I guess. So I'm going to round it a little bit. Just thinning the edges, basically. Then the part up here, I'm going to thin it. And then the bit that's going to be joined to it, I'm thinning that. You're trying to create a liquid slip on the surface from the clay that's there, and when you think you've got it to a little thicker, you know, so it's not water on the surface, it's definitely slip, then you place it. Let's pull this guy over a bit now, he's taped up. I'll have to find some paper to put under there too. Oh, there's my pin. Alright, so I'm just pushing down until I feel like it's getting the level of the actual, that's about there. So the joint isn't like butt to butt, it's actually a bevel to bevel, so it hands up with a slightly thicker joint. It's like if you have a 2-inch thick piece of wood and you want to join two pieces together of 2-inch, like 2x4s, and you cut straight across, you just got a 2-inch, or actually 1 3/4 join. But if you cut them at 45 degrees and then join them together, you're going to end up with probably a 3-inch join. So it's stronger. There you go. I'll lift the fin a bit so I can put that paper right under there. Okay, so I always like, let's pull this down a bit because I might be going slightly off here. That way, so you can see the tail. I like to pull a curve in, and then there, these little bumps there, I can use the roller. I can simply go down a bit. And those little bumps, I can flatten them with the roller, so they're a little bit thinner than the main body of the whale. And then just thin them a bit more. Now you can smooth off the back of the whale, I guess, if you want to. You can also round off the edges a lot, depending, but I wouldn't make it too thin up there. Now let's smooth that little piece up there with the paintbrush. I'm going to bend the tail eventually, so it doesn't matter, it goes off a little bit. Get some more water. Coming up the mouth area there. Just rounding it, smoothing it. Now the mouth, find that pin again, comes up, around like that. And I'm looking where the fin is, and it's got to curve down before the fin, because the eye will go about here. So that little piece there, I want to make it so it's like a mouth. So I'm going to take some soft clay and roll a very thin coil. That's way too much, but I wanted to make it thin enough. And then I can roll it over and you'll see what I'm going to do. It's a very thin coil, which means I just dried it out a lot. So I'm going to run some water all the way along that coil, make it really soft again. Put some water over that area. Then I'm going to fold it over. See what I just did? Fold it over so it's basically two lips. You can hear the pigeons, I bet. And then I'm going to press down. Well, actually, before I do that, I wanted to do something else. So we're going to come down here with the drawing. So I'm not sealing that mouth down yet, because I've got to do this little bit where the ribs, not the ribs, but the kind of lines of the underside of a whale are. So we're going to come down like that. So let's just lift this guy up a touch. Now, if you don't have this tool, it has little cutouts. Let's see if I can show you a bit better. It has little cutouts at the edge. I put those there. So take a saw and just cut yourself out. Or if you've got a tiny grindstone, you can do it with a grindstone. To give yourself 5 parallel lines when you pull it along. So let's show you what I mean. I wet it. And then I put it there, and I'm just going to turn it quickly. You've got some stuff on your tool, so scrape it off. Actually, I think I like the other side of the tool better. Let's just try and do that again. Because I had a little wiggle there. Put my sponge over here. So this tool is just a modeling tool that I have carved in with a grinder, or you can use a saw to get parallel lines, which I use quite often. Okay, so we've got our parallel lines in. The pigeons are right outside the window at the moment. Here's a tip with the water. I've done this and pulled the whole pot of water over my pot. So hold the pot when you're actually scraping that tool over. Okay, so wetting it. And then I've got the mouth again. And then I'm just touching it down a little bit. Not too much. And then I'm going to take the tool, a little wooden modeling tool, put it in there and separate the lips a bit. And then I can pull the bottom one down over the lines, so it makes it, and the lines look very neat, of course. Same with the top. I'm just going to push with the top one, so I can get that coil smoothed in, and by putting the pressure on, it's stuck for sure. I can bend that over at the edge there. These boards that I use are concrete boards for foundation work, and they don't bend or warp over time. So I really like using them in my studio instead of wooden boards. And I bought an 8x4 sheet of this concrete board, and it was expensive. It was like, at the time I think I spent $60 on it, when plywood was only about $30. I don't know what it costs now. Wood has gone up a lot in price. Maybe the concrete hasn't, but the concrete board has fiber through it to strengthen it, so it's lasted 13 years now. And I should put new tape on the edges, because I used duct tape so that the edges didn't break down. Okay. And then I'm using the paintbrush now just to give it some. So it kind of neatened up that mouth area a little bit. Okay, the eye is simple. Those pigeons sound so comforting. You've got to be careful out there because we have hawks and eagles. Little eye. So I just smoothed that eye in there. Flatten it down a touch. Take another little bit of clay, make another little tiny coil. I want to give my eye a little bit of a, that's too dry, that piece. I spray the clay every so often that I've got sitting on the side here to keep it wet. You put that little eye thing above, curve it around the eye. So you've got an upper lid basically. And then for the eyeball, which is where I put the screw when I put these on the wall, when I'm drilling them on, just put a little eye in. So I can put a hole right in there and it's hardly notable. In fact, the screw head looks like the eyeball. Okay, so we've got our ribs in there. I didn't smooth them, but just take a, you can leave them rough if you want to. I'm just putting a little light touch with the brush to get, so there's nothing sharp there. And then the rib, the fin, I like to put in, following the curves on the outer edge. It's going to go, let's see, that's not the way it goes like this. Okay, so along here I'm going to follow the lines and put some curves in. This might be artistic license here, but I think it looks nice. After the last video, when you saw I had a little lightning strike on the studio, I spent a lot of time just kind of dealing with electricians and other things this week. Television was gone and the Wi-Fi equipment was all fried, and so we had to replace a lot of stuff, but it's all pretty much done. And no work was damaged in the thing, and you know, like I said in the last video, it wasn't a bad fire, it was a smoldering fire. And this is what caused all the kerfuffle. Fortunately, we built with ICF construction, so the insulation burns in a sort of smoldering way instead of bursting into flames. And there's a concrete barrier between two layers of 2-inch thick insulation. So that's why it saved the day, because if it wasn't for that, the fire was burning for 10 hours with nobody knowing, from 12:30 until we checked the building about 10 in the morning, and or about 10 o'clock, and basically just has smoldered all night, causing a lot of nasty smoke, and that's all fading away now as well. So miracles do happen. All right, favorable times for me, I hope. Now I'm going to put a little water on the back here. But it could have been a lot worse because the gas line was what we think was hit. But it was an insulated gas line that had plastic coating all around it with copper tubing inside. And it actually completely burned all the copper tubing. Not the copper tubing, the plastic coating of the wires was all gone. It was just burnt plastic. And so the copper held up under the fire. Just, you know, got really lucky that week. It was a week ago today. There's not, we've double insulated everything now. Just to, second time we've had our property hit by lightning. The first time it was the tree right next to the house and it split it in two. And that was in New York when we used to live in New York. When they say lightning doesn't strike twice, well, I guess it does if the person moves. But not the same location. There you go, so we got a nice fin on there now. Get that smooth again. I didn't do those. Here it is. Let me show you what. I just kind of follow the curve of the okay, we've got fin. What else? Okay, so I'm going to support this. I like to give these fins some movement. So if you just twist it like that, you can do anything you want here, basically. I'm just making something up. It gives it a lot more thickness, so you get a bit more three-dimensional feel to it. You could have it supported with clay and paper underneath and lift it way up, but that would be, I think, too high. So for me, anyway. Remember, anything goes. You're a potter. You can do anything you want. Wet the top part here. Lots of water. Just to create some slip on the surface there. And then I've got some crumbles of dry clay. I could do some on the fin down here actually as well. And then with a brush that's a bit wet, you simply press them down. Be careful you don't lift them up. So I just kind of pressed once. And they might fall off later on, I don't know. Some of them do, but some of them stay. We're almost done. I'm gonna give it a little body muscle. Okay, this part's done, so now we're going to turn around. Same here, I'm going to give it some nice movement things to the fin. Every whale has different markings apparently on the tail there. Give it some water just to smooth it and make it a bit more bent. Checking everything at this point, make sure there's no sharp areas on the fin areas. And then here, can you see this? I think it's going to be a bit out of the picture here. I'm going to lift it, pull the paper back a little bit, and let's get a lump of clay. It's too tall, squish it down a bit. Just to give that fin a little movement. And the same over here. Only here, I'm going to bend and hold that one down, that one up a bit. All right, I think that was it. So that one took 29 minutes. Okay, so I mail a lot of these, and I'm using so much bubble wrap and cardboard and boxes. That's why I was saying, you know, maybe some other people should try making some fish and whales so that it's a regional thing. You don't have to ship it very far. But it's a great item to have just on the outside of your studio if you have a retail shop. There's a fin here, I just want to bend that one a bit. There you go, that was like a little bend to it. Because they just screw to the wall, basically. If you're near a river, a lake, or and then use the local fish that you have by you. If you're on the ocean, whales and dolphins and what other, seals maybe, I don't know. Fishermen don't like seals though, and fishermen I do sell a lot of fish and whales to fishermen in this area because we have an active lobster fishery here. They've asked me to do lobsters too, but I find them a little bit too delicate. So I keep have fun. We have a couple of projects there that you can actually do, and keep the clay a little thick. Don't go less than 1/4 inch. Okay, so this is the following morning. So they've been drying now for about 15 to 20 hours, I would say. And they're still looking pretty, not soft, but they're not leather hard yet, I don't think. I let them dry like this, just on the paper, so that they can shrink without sticking to the board. But it's too early to remove the paper. So I'm going to leave them until late today and see what the condition is then, but maybe it'll be tomorrow. It's now 2 days after I did the whales, and it's been humid, so things don't dry super fast this time of year. But they're actually still on the newspaper, and you can see paper's buckling because they're pulling in as they shrink. This part is almost dry, so I'm going to take that piece of clay out. But this is when I would drill a hole for the screw, and the clay is it's leather hard now, and so I'll do another one up here. And I use the tiny screws, so you hardly notice them. But then, and you've got to be very careful doing this, I simply pull it, making sure this isn't overlapped. These concrete boards are slightly bendable, so if you let it get too dry, they can crack as the board bends when you lift it up. So I just pull it off like that, take it to the point where I think I've got like a balance, so when I lift, there's not too much pressure on anything. It's still bendable, so that's actually just go. Pull that down carefully. So it's still bending a little bit. So that's released there. Now if I put it back, it doesn't actually rejoin onto the paper. You've got to just be very careful, basically. I'm trying not to let too much weight go. And then I'll pull that down again. And that's released. And then I'll lift it without any bending whatsoever and let this fall on the floor. Look at that, one last bit stuck. And then slide it back on here. If you get it, it's a timing thing. So basically that's how I take it. And then it just dries naturally and then gets put into the kiln. So, but just being careful so that nothing bends very much. So you need 2 hands supporting. If you let it get too dry, they'll crack if it bends even a tiny bit. And if it's too soft, obviously it's too floppy. And if you let it get totally dry, it is probably just as fine to pull the paper off at that point, but you might get more bending from the paper crumpling, so that's your choice. It doesn't matter if it bends, because look, we've got bending everywhere. So if it has a little bit of bending, I don't think it really bothers it at all anyway.